everyone, Artie Tambarambaa, also known as Tammy Klinger here, again today sharing another art journal page for Art by Marlene. This one is using lots and lots of new stuff. I'm absolutely in love with this collection so much. I just wish I had more time to play with it. Okay, so I'm using a page from my perfect size journal, and then I'm going to use the new watercolor brushes. I always have some sponges on hand in case I use them, and then I have the new watercolor paint set, which is an amazing set of colors. And I'll also be using the sticky quotes, the new sticky quotes, and I will use that ticket stamp that you can see there. And then I decide to use that beautiful paper from the new paper set. I just love that that paper there in particular. Love it. So I thought I'd go with a couple of flowers from that and create a page. So I've sped it up now, and what I'm doing is I'm just fussy cutting out a couple of the large flowers. And sorry, I didn't do this very well on screen. But I'm just basically trimming around the edges. And for this one, I actually just made it a little bit smaller because I didn't want to cut into the other flower because I'll use that in another project. So sort of playing around with where I want them. And then I think, oh, those leaves are right in the way, not where I want to position them. So I trim them off, and then I can poke them under and play around, and I'm happy with that in the top right hand corner of my page. So I decided to just create a watercolor background, and watercolor backgrounds are so fun because you can just, you get magic blending of colors, and you can let the paint run, and you don't have to think about it too much. I guess the only thing I knew that I would put my quote further down the page, so I did want to leave some white space on the bottom sort of third of the page. So I'm just adding a few bits of water and letting it drip and run down my page, and then I'm mainly using blues, greens and pinks at this stage, and when the blue and the pinks mix, they make a lovely purple. So you're getting that lovely variance of colours in there. So I dry it off every now and then come in with another layer. So you know me, I like vibrant, so I would actually flick some paint on, do a few mark makings, load up some colour, and then let it dry and then come back again. So I've also added a little bit of lime this time. I was sort of thinking about those flowers and thought, well, there's green leaves, and I'd sort of gone quite turquoisey, so I just added a bit more lime in. Now I'm loving that purple that I've just added a little bit of purple. So it's very pretty. I'd like it just like this. So as I said, just building up some of the layers, going over some of the drips a little bit. And when it dries, it always dries a bit softer, which is why I like to build up the layers. So every now and then I just bring back in those flowers and make sure that I'm sort of happy with how far down the colour is. I think at this point I thought I haven't quite brought the colour far enough down, so I'm starting to bring it down a little bit more and just add a few more mark makings in. I do tap my page because it's quite heavy with water, because I like that mixing of colours, so I do tend to have pools of water everywhere. So I actually use a dry baby wipe for that, because sometimes paper towel leaves an imprint like a pattern, which is really cool in some situations, but I don't always want that. So every now and then I'm flicking some paint around as well, because I just want it to look quite artsy and grungy. And sorry about the in and out of that when I'm drying off. I probably should cut that bit out for you, but anyway. Okay, so checking again, and then I think I'm going to use these stamps. So I really love, there's like a postage stamp in there, like the border of a stamp. And so what I'm doing is I'm actually just adding watercolor to that stamp and then stamping it sort of randomly on my page. I'm still trying to keep it where I've got colour. I don't want to bring it into that white space too much, just a little bit. So I'm going in with, like, I'm finding the deeper purple and the deeper blues, and I think I used a pink as well. Yeah, just sort of haphazardly stamping it. And I really like the look. It looks, I don't know, it kind of looks like I've done some stenciling, and it looks like I've, you know, done all sorts of things, but it's really just watercolor and some playing around and some stamps. So yeah, I'm going to definitely use this background again because I really like it, and I kind of ended up covering quite a bit of it up in the end, so I do think this will be a lovely background. So there's also in that stamp set, there's that circular shape, like a ring shape, and so I thought that would make a really cool stamp and make my background look quite painterly and splatty, and yeah, like the watercolours are all sort of bleeding a little bit. I really love the look of that. So I just kind of kept going, adding here and there, and then as it dried, sometimes I felt like it needed another layer, or I needed to, perhaps there was a couple of areas where the colours had mixed and it kind of made a little bit of a mud, so I just kind of added another colour in to cover that up. So I did have a look at the quotes, and the quote that I do pick for this page says, "If it is out of your hands, it deserves freedom from your mind too." And I love that quote. Yeah, I think we can all get bogged down with our thoughts, and it's nice to remember that we can't control everything, and if we can't do much about it, there's not a lot of point stressing over it. Sometimes we just have to let things be. So now I've got my flowers down, I add a few more stamps and mark makings, and then a few more splats just for good measure. I guess once the flowers are down, you can really see how the background is looking. And isn't that gorgeous? It's just, it's just popping. I love it. So I get the sticky glue and I add the flowers down to the page. And you see that I do have a little bit of an overhang there because I just decided that flower was taking up too much space. So I'm just making it a little bit higher on the page, and I will trim that off. And so now I've added the quote down, and I've come in also in the ticket stamp. There's a gorgeous little crosses, little cluster of little crosses, and I am just using black archival ink to stamp that randomly through my page, and it just gives another layer of texture. And because I used a black quote and there's black outlining the flowers, it just sort of ties that all in by adding a little black to the background as well. Then I added a few scribbles around the quote and a few scribbles around the edge of my page, just a couple of lines around the edges with a few little bits of scribbles. And then I just create a little bit of a shadow around my page, like mainly around the flowers. I just felt like they were perhaps getting a little bit lost, so I did a few drips and a few shadows as well. And yeah, I really like this background. I couldn't help it, always coming in and doing a few more stamps. But here is the finished page. I'll leave you with close-ups so you can have a look at that background and see a bit more of the detail. But yeah, this is a really fun, you can use your stamps almost like stencils and have fun with some watercolour and see what kind of backgrounds you can come up with. Thanks so much for joining me today. As always, I love hearing from you, and I'll be back again soon. Bye.